and turn it over to today's presenter. Jordan Jace is joining us, who is the Assistant Director of the Education and Development at the New York State Archives Partnership Trust and State Coordinator for the New York Council for History Education. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to present today. I was asked to present today on, let me put my PowerPoint up here before I forget. Let me share my screen first. Yesterday was a holiday, so this is my Monday, so bear with me here for a second. Share. All right. Can everybody see the slides? Okay, thank you. All right, so I was asked to present, I'm the education person, so my wheelhouse is K-12 educators and also college education, making resources available to teachers and students from the New York State Archives, but also from repositories across the state. I was originally an archaeologist, just to give you a little bit of background. And then I got certified to teach 712 social studies. Was a classroom teacher, and now I am a full-time educator for the New York State Archives and the New York State Archives Partnership Trust. So today I'm going to introduce you just briefly, it's only an hour presentation, to some of the resources we have available for researchers and also for educators. So it's more of a broad presentation of the things that are available to you. And then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers. So please pop those into the Q&A box if you have any questions as we're going along here. So the New York State Archives, I don't know how, hopefully most of you are at least familiar that the State Archives exists and a little bit of what we do. But let's see here. State Archives collects, preserves, and makes accessible almost 400 years of New York State's colonial and state records. It's important to remember that what we collect, what the State Archives collects and makes available, is specific to New York State government, and colonial government. So we have a very specific perspective when it comes to the records that we hold at the State Archives. There's over 270 million records dating from the Dutch colonial period all the way through to modern day. Most recently, we received the most recent Governor Cuomo's records when he left office. It's free and open to the public. You can visit on site. I will say majority of what we have is not digitized and available online, but the online digital collections grows every day. So there is a lot available there now, and that's always growing. So there's a selection there. And then we also have some of our stuff available for free on Ancestry.com, and I'll show you how to access that. I don't know how many are familiar with that, but Ancestry wanted to digitize some of the records of the State Archives, so a partnership was formed, and part of the deal was New York State residents would be able to access the things that were from the State Archives on Ancestry for free without a paid subscription. So I'll be able to show you a little bit how to access that if that's of any interest to those. And that's a lot of genealogists use that, but a lot of educators do as well. There's military records, so I'll show some of those as well in the presentation. So Ancestry New York, this is a list of all of the collections that are on Ancestry that are available through Ancestry New York for free. Census records, state census records, I should clarify that. So while the federal government did it on the 10s, the state did it on the 5s. So there's quite a bit of state census records that are digitized and available through Ancestry. A lot of military records, so Civil War, World War I, service cards, pension claims from the Revolutionary War. You'll see here there's an extensive list, but this is what's available for free through Ancestry that's been digitized from the State Archives. Now, consider the source. New York is what we've developed. It was developed with a grant, a generous grant from the Gardner Foundation, and also private donations about, oh, wow, almost 4 years ago now. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's been that long. And what we did is we were able to create a website for teachers and students to access primary sources that are specifically curated for the K-12 audience. Now, that's not to say everyone else isn't going to find amazing stuff on here that is great to look at. And you can right click and save it to your computer. We have transcriptions of almost everything, and I'm going to show you that as well. But the purpose of this is that teachers and students don't have to browse, you know, tens of thousands of primary sources that are available through New York Heritage or through New York State Archives, but they can browse a subset of that that is specific to the K-12 curriculum, which just makes it a little bit less time consuming and a little bit easier to find what they're looking for. And they can also access thousands of teacher-created learning activities. So we have learning activities on here created by teachers using the documents on the website. Teachers can also upload their own, if it's a JPEG, and use the platform to create learning activities. So they can share those learning activities with other teachers on here, but also they can share it with their students directly through Google Classroom. And so they can either build their own or they can edit the existing learning activities to share with their students. And then New York Archives Magazine is a publication of the New York State Archives Partnership Trust. I usually say this in the beginning, but I should say that the trust is a nonprofit that was set up by the state legislature to support the work of the archives. So the New York State Archives, their mandate is to collect, preserve, and make accessible the documents of New York State and colonial history. Their mandate doesn't really include education, preservation, and outreach work. So the Archives Partnership Trust was set up by the state legislature to do that work. So we are able to raise money through grants and private donations to support education, development educational resources, and outreach programs. The magazine is one of those things that the trust publishes. It's quarterly. It's not so much an academic magazine. It's more of a public history magazine. It's actually beautiful. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but in print, it's quite stunning. Um, this is our fall 2023. In the last year, we've received a grant to create an Archives Junior. So this is designed for grades 4 through 8. So it takes one feature article from the New York Archives magazine and rewrites it at a fourth, fifth grade level, and then has learning activities and a document analysis activity that goes with it, as well as community connections, showing local places to visit that are associated with the article, and a Did You Know section. And those are available in print for free to any teachers that request them. So we send out classroom sets to any teacher, and there's a form to fill out, which I'll show you where that is as well. But that's just a companion to the New York Archives magazine. I also encourage you, if you are a local historian or you are interested or involved in local history research, we're always looking for article submissions. So we accept those year round, and just has to be about a New York related topic, and use archival materials. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. Good place to publish. Features are 2,000 words or less. So again, they're not a long academic article. And we also have departments you can publish in as well. So I don't know if you'll make this, I know this is being recorded. I don't know if you make the deck available, but I wanted to make sure the links were here on a slide for all the viewers if they wanted to explore the things I'm going to show you at this point in the presentation. And then I just created a final slide with my contact information. So that's available to you as well. So I'm going to pop out of my presentation here, and I'm going to go online. Can you all see Heidi and Jen? Just give me a thumbs up. You can see my screen. I'm on the internet now. Okay, so now see if I can get this to work properly. I always seem to have trouble accessing my top bar when I'm in presentation mode. So why don't I start with the magazine? So if you go to, this is the website for the magazine. We have a highlight page for every issue. We have one free article you can read for free. I should also mention if you register for a free account on Consider the Source, you get free 1-year digital access through Consider the Source to the whole magazine, starting with the current issue, and then you get 3 more after that. So it's a little perk of signing up, registering for an account, which is free. There's no charge. There never will be. But I can just show you like the highlights page for this last issue. It's a little slow here at the moment. So these are all the highlight pages for every issue. And this was the winter 2024 issue. We have short videos. You can meet the author. Here's the link to the Archives Junior. Here's the free article. You can also get a PDF version of it by clicking here, and it gives you an overview of what's in the magazine. So just if you're interested in the magazine, we have a lot of resources online to go ahead and explore those. Um, let's see here. I'm going to click out of this and hope that there's the Archives Junior. Again, you request free classroom sets here. It's just a Google form. So it opens up a Google form. You fill out, you select how many you want of each one, and we ship them to you for free. It also asks for your address for shipping and your email address. So just know you can explore that on your own time as well. The Ancestry New York. So this is the New York State Archives webpage. Actually, let me take you to the home page. And so when you come to the home page, we have this research tab over here, which I'm going to dive into in a second. But down here are quick links. And in the quick links is the ancestry.com New York information page. So this gives you a little bit of an overview of how it works. It's a little confusing in that it's free. So of course, Ancestry is going to continuously prompt you to get a paid account, but this is available for free. So don't let that fool you. You just have to put in a New York State zip code. So this is a video that the archives created to kind of teach you how to navigate Ancestry New York without paying for an account. So I highly encourage you to watch that. It's very well done. It takes you through step by step. But just to show you, when you put in a zip code, um, this is the landing page that it takes you to on Ancestry in a second here. Um, so it's just the New York. So New York, where history goes on record. So when you see this page, you know that you're in the history, the New York ancestry section. So you can do searches here. So if you're doing genealogy, or maybe you're searching for a local name, if you're going to use a record in the classroom, maybe look for some Civil War records to share with your students about local community members who served in the Civil War. This is a great place to do that. You'll get their muster roll abstracts. You'll get a lot of town clerk records detailing their service. And then down here at the bottom, these are all of these collections that are available through this free section here. So when you do want to click on something, it'll prompt you to sign up for a free account. But again, I encourage you to watch that video. That'll take you through step by step how to access this for free if that's of interest to you. But that's a great way to access a lot of digitized records that may not be on the New York State Archives digital collections quite yet. So back to the archives page. This research button here is where, if you're doing research on here, this is where all of the different various things you're going to want to access are located. So if you want to search for records, this is the one I use a lot. You can do that in several different ways. So we've got a research topics tab that you can open up and search by topic. We also have the finding aid. So if you're looking for a finding aid that will describe what's in a collection, you can search for it here. And you can do that in many different ways. So you can search for it just by a full text search, so keywords. If you know the series title or series number or who created it. So you can search by all of these different things here. So one of the things I wanted to point out is we have in the New York State Archives collection a lot of images from around the world. And people would say, well, why do you have those? When I first started, I was like, that's interesting. I wouldn't think the state archives would have that. Well, we have those because in the early 1900s, the state education department created glass lantern slide decks and made magic lanterns available to school districts. So a teacher could request the lanterns and then a slide deck for instructional purposes. So I always like to say, think smartboard, but 100 years ago. So it was an educational tool made available to the education through the education department. Well, we get all the records of the state education department as we get a selection of those records that get kept for posterity. And those glass lantern slides are some of those records. So if I just put in here lantern, you always get this message, but it's fine. It's secure. Nothing bad has ever happened. it gives you all of the collections we have that are related to glass lantern slides. And then if you click on one, it opens up the finding aid. And our finding aids are most of them are very thorough. They give you a lot of information. So a summary of what's in here, a scope of the content. Now, if there are available on items online available in this collection, it tells you that in the finding aid. So it's a great way to find things that have been digitized related to the topics that you're looking for. And then if you click the link, it takes you right to the page in digital collections, and it brings up all the items in that collection that have been digitized. So as you see, it's on lots of different topics: indigenous communities, the American Revolution. There's some great images of New York City at different times. This one's from 1900, turn of the century. So there's some great images in there. I like to point that out because it's not something a lot of people know we have. And if you're a teacher looking for visuals for the classroom, and we got a lot of global images too from around the world of the pyramids and the ruins in Greece and Rome. So teachers looking for primary sources to teach those different topics, this is a good place to do that. But I wanted to use this as an example of how you get to the digital collections through a finding aid, because those, if there are digitized records available for that collection, it will tell you that in the finding aid. All right, so I'm again having difficulties here, so I'm gonna just kind of go here back to digital collections. The digital collections has a search bar here. You can also browse. There's a browse objects. You can also browse the series. Let's see how long this takes here. I apologize. So there's 62,000 objects currently in here. So, and then it allows you to kind of whittle it down by series, by creator. That's the browse. But I typically use the search. So if you wanted to search for something, you just type the word in the search bar here. And I don't know if I put in lantern, let's see what comes up. Probably all the lantern slides, I would think. Yeah, so there's 3,600 here. Well, there's pictures of lanterns, but just an idea of that's how you use the digital collections here. We also have some exhibits that were created, and these are great. So this one was on the land of the blacks in New York City. So land grants that were given to half-free Africans that were in the Dutch colonial period in on Manhattan. And they're in Dutch, but again, on Consider the Source, we have the transcriptions, and I think these might actually have transcriptions too, since they're in the exhibit. But there's quite a few here, so that's something to explore if you're just kind of looking at it for ideas of what the state archives might have. There's one on African American voting rights, indigenous political cartoons. We do have some of those, especially from the First World War. So these are just some of the exhibits that have been created from New York State Archives documents. We've got quite a few from the Revolution now. So with the 250th coming up, you may want to explore some of those. We have quite a bit about loyalists and the property being confiscated from loyalists during the American Revolution in the court records. And one on public health, Civil War. So as you can see, you can browse at your own convenience, but those are some exhibits that we have available on the State Archives website. So again, there's a lot to explore here. I also should say that we have a name index, so I didn't finish going down here, but you can also search the name index, and tells you kind of what series it will browse or it will look for, but you can also browse by series. So if you're doing genealogy research, the name index is a great way to start some of your research. I should also mention, since there's not a lot online, we also have a tremendous reference desk, and we have an email arcref at nicid.gov, which you can find on here. But you can submit questions for items. You can schedule to come and do a visit to look at documents. You can have boxes pulled ahead of, you want to have the boxes pulled ahead of time for you for when you arrive, but schedule to come and look at records at the state archives. But tremendous staff that are willing and ready to help you. So just keep that in mind as well if you want to do research at the state archives. Let's go back here to the search for records. Again, you can access digital collections through here as well. We also have a motion picture division index. So we have lots of motion picture, um, uh, well, what are they called? The text, I'm talking about. So it's escaping me. But anyway, from when they were censoring motion pictures in New York State. So they all had to be submitted ahead of time and reviewed. And then it was determined, if they needed to make changes or not, or if it was approved to be shown in New York. So that was in the mid 20th century. So that's an interesting collection as well that we have. Um, so anyway, so there's lots to explore here. We also do workshops. I think there's also some recorded things on here that you can explore at your convenience too. So, and I don't know how many are interested in records management, but a lot of local governments, if you are a local government, we have a grant program for that. And again, that's all available through the website to be explored as well. So. Uh, if you have any questions about this as we're going through, just go ahead and pop them in the Q&A and I'm going to answer them best I can. I am not a reference archivist, I will confess. That is not my specialty, but I work with them a lot. So if I can't answer a question, I can direct you where to go for that if you have a question I can't answer. So that's the New York State Archives website. Again, there's quite a bit on here. Now, consider the source is separate. So it's not a part of that website. It's a separate website on its own. It's a .org. And we do that because this now allows us to add documents from other repositories. So before I get started and kind of showing you around, I want to kind of give you a little bit of a pitch for that. So we will add documents from your repository if you feel that they are um, valuable for teachers and students and appropriate for K-12 classroom. We can add those to consider the source so teachers can find your documents as well. And I will say we just recently added the ability to browse by repository. So if you add your documents, you'll get a button on here that has your repository. And as you see, there's quite a few that have already contributed to consider the source. So we've got a lot of local repositories that have contributed documents. They all appear as part of your organization. So let me just pick one here. So this is the Jordan Historical Society. And so this is one of the documents that they've contributed. There's a description, tells you what it is. This is given to us by the repository. So we'll give you a simple spreadsheet and you fill in the information that you have about the item. And then you can access it. The teachers and students will be able to access it through here. I want to show you probably a little bit better example than that one. I just kind of randomly clicked on that one. Um, so the Albert Weisner Library, so they contributed quite a few newspaper articles and clippings and things. They also a bill of sale for an individual enslaved person. But when you click on the document, you'll notice here's the repository and it's hyperlinked to them. So when you click on it, it takes you to their website, so you can explore what else they have. You can contact them if you want to make a visit. So we try to make it as much about the repository that's contributed the document as possible. So it's just one of the things, but we have a Google workspace that has like 100 terabytes of storage for nonprofit. So that's what we do. We have you drop the image, a JPEG, 1,000 pixels or wider, in there, and then you fill in the spreadsheet, and then we take care of putting it up on Consider the Source for you. So just know that that's an option if you're looking for ways to get your records, some of your records out there for teachers and students. So teachers and students can browse historical records by topic. They can also do it by historical era, by repository, by primary source type, by region. So as you see, these are the regions we have that you can browse by. You can also bookmark anything on here to come back to later. I keep saying teachers and students, but I should also say that we've had quite a few researchers and just individuals in general interested in New York history browsing on Consider the Source. Anybody can use it. It's free and open access. Anybody can register for an account. If you are an educator, I should also mention that it is Ed2D compliant. So we don't collect any personal information from the students. And from you as a registered user, we just get your name and an email address so that you can create an account. But other than that, we don't collect any information. So we're 100% compliant with the state's privacy laws for students. Otherwise, districts would not let most teachers use it there because they're very strict with those, as they should be, with the privacy laws. So I just wanted to mention that. So if you browse by topic, we'll just pick African Americans here at the top. As you see, we've got over 200 documents related to the history of African Americans. And just scroll down here. So this one here is a New York State Archives document that's been put on to Consider the Source with all the information that goes with it. There's a link to the New York State Archives. If there's a document, if there's a lesson, a learning activity that goes with the document, it appears at the bottom of the screen here. So if a teacher wants to use this document in the classroom, they can see what activities have already been created. They're linked to the social studies standards. And then they can also look to see what the student view looks like, this is what it is. This one is actually excerpted out. So, because this is a very long speech, it's like 14 pages. So for students, that's a lot. So this lesson takes pieces from this speech and has students analyze them and then answer an overarching question at the end here. So just an example of how the website works. You browse by topic or any of those other categories. Teachers can also look at the learning activities. And I also encourage you, if you're a repository thinking about making materials available to teachers and looking for ideas on how to package them into a learning activity or lesson, browsing on here to look at some of these lessons might give you good ideas on what teachers are looking for, since these are all created by teachers. So again, you can here's Civil War, and then these are all learning activities. So if you wanted to click on this one, this is a photograph. It has Ulysses S. Grant, but it also has Ely Parker. And you can look at the student view here. And so this allows teachers also, they can put annotations on. So this was done as an example, but if you, when the student hovers over that, if there was a comment there, the comment would pop up. But again, this is what the student view looks like. Um, so so yeah, that's an example of how you would find it through the learning activity side. And then teachers can also create their own from scratch. And as a repository, you could do this too. So if you wanted to put your items up here, if you want them to appear on this purple Browse Historical Records side, you have to submit them to us at the Archives Partnership Trust, and then we can add them. However, if you wanted to create learning activities on your own and not submit through this side, you could still upload them as JPEGs and create your own. If we add them over here, then you could go in as a repository and create learning activities using the ones that we added to the browse side as well. So lots of different ideas and flexibility for how you can participate as a repository if you're interested in doing that. But again, like we have them from all over. Like this one is from New York Historical. This document, 24 Weeks on the Potomac. It's got the two generals staring at each other. It's part of a larger activity, New York family in the Civil War. But it comes from the New York Historical Society. So just, there's a lot on here to explore. I believe right now we have, I know it's over 3,000 primary sources, and that's always growing. Over 2,000 learning activities and 1,600 registered users. So a lot to explore here as well. If you want to access New York Archives Junior from here, you can do that right here in the resources section. You can also our featured collection section also has some more concentrated, more curated sets of documents as well. So we have one for Black History Month that we just recently created. We're in the works of doing one for Women's History Month in March. And but these are some of the past projects that we've done. So we've got a collection on the Armenian genocide. Those images come from that glass lantern slide collection that I had mentioned earlier. So again, some valuable things in that collection as well. This is on Chinese and Latinx history and culture in New York, this Legacies project. This Erie Canal, I don't know how many of you may remember this, but we did in, I think, the year 2000, the State Archives produced a book on the Erie Canal using the records from the state archives, but also from other repositories. Um, and it's no longer in print. I think you can get it on eBay for like $350 or something crazy like that. But what we've done is, since it was our publication, we were able to take it and put it on an online version. So you can access the entire book with all the documents through the website here. So I don't know how many are interested, but we have a big anniversary of the Erie Canal coming up. So there's lots of documents, both on the State Archives website as well as on Consider the Source related to the Erie Canal. And then we did a diversity and collaborative knowledge project across the state, which helped kind of build our network and build some of the resources we have from other repositories. So you are able to find some of the learning activities and documents that were added for the different regions of the state when you click on. So we've got some great ones from the Delaware County Historical Society on the milk strikes in the 1930s, and also the WPA. So there's a variety of things on here to explore as well. Um, and this Mining Untold Stories, I should also say, is a great partnership that we've done with some local repositories. The Schuyler Mansion and the historic Cherry Hill and the Underground Railroad Center. And they have pre and post visit materials for teachers that we've put up on the website for them, as well as documents from all three repositories. And they divide it out by grade level. So these are all learning activities by grade level. Um, so just I guess a lot to explore, a lot to find on these websites. Um, and we do offer professional learning. So this webinar is one thing that we've collaborated with Winnie Lark, but we offer teacher workshops throughout the state. So that's available to anyone if you're interested. Obviously it'd have to fit in my schedule, but but those are available as well. And I also want to mention the Student Research Awards. I know a lot of you are repositories, but this is something that local historians and like local library history rooms could partner with school districts as part of the Seal of Civic Readiness, which is a new initiative from the State Department, the State Education Department, to get students involved in their local communities and civic engagement. And part of that is research, research with local history and a local issue, a community issue. And the Student Research Award program, it's been around for 34 years. I know a lot of people still haven't heard of it, but it's been around for a while. And it's kind of like History Day, but it's only for New York State students, and it's for grades 4 through 12. And it allows, the requirements are local, not local. You have to have an annotated bibliography and you have to use primary sources. We encourage local historical research, and some of our best projects are local historic research projects, but we take any project and any project type. They just have to have an annotated bibliography and use historical records. And all the information's here. There's guidelines, there's an entry form, there's a poster that you can print off and hang up in your local library or wherever you are, your local repository. There's some examples of some winning projects from this past year. A teacher from Long Island talking about the impact of using Student Research Awards with her students. So I just always like to kind of mention it because a lot of people haven't heard of it, but it's a great way for students in your community to really get involved in local historical research. So I just want to always make that aware. There's a cash prize for the winners. We also give historical honorable mentions, and anybody who has an annotated bibliography and uses historical records gets a certificate of merit. So it's a great recognition program for students to get recognized for their historical research work. So I wanted to mention that as well. And let's see here. I'm just trying to think what else it is I wanted to mention, kind of just show you here online. Um, uh, I will also say that this consider the source that wasn't my idea for a title. I like it, but it came from this book that originally came out in the mid 90s. I think it was 1995. The State Archives put out a consider the source book on using historical records in the classroom. So if you are a teacher or know of teachers that are looking to do this work but aren't super familiar, this is a great resource. Um, to just learn. So we took the book and we divided it up, and each of these links to a sample activity or document, and then it has activities that go with it. Um, but even if you're a repository looking to make some of your things available to teachers, this is a great place to kind of learn the types of documents teachers are looking for. And it works like a book, so you can go through each chapter. So this is like why teachers use primary sources, and then difference between a primary and a secondary source. Um, and then what are historical records? This would be more for a teacher that's just starting to use primary sources. So that was that first section. So then finding and working with historical records gives teachers some tips on how to go into the local repositories and find documents. And then how do you, this was kind of, we rewrote this like 10 years ago, but now I feel like these things are constantly need updated, but finding and saving digital records. So, that went from originally that section was how do you photocopy? Make sure you have money for photocopying when you go to the repository. Now most things are scanned for you. So, and then this one is kind of the meat of it, how using historical records in the classroom. So kind of taking you through how they're used in the classroom, and then there's a whole bunch of featured learning activities that are introduction to using primary sources in the classroom. So it's just a great resource to get started if you don't already use primary sources, or if you're a repository and not sure how to connect with teachers and how they might use your documents. This is a great resource to get that conversation started within your repository. Um, I think on here, that's probably about all I wanted to show. Um, I might maybe entertain some questions here starting, see how long they go, and then usually that'll jar me into a couple other things I wanted to say and kind of forgot to show. So you want to see what kind of questions there are?
Yeah, we do have a few. So, one attendee was interested to know if other states had similar archive information available. They were specifically looking for Pennsylvania, um, and Heidi was able to find a PA website that I can put in the chat now if anyone else is interested.
Okay, great. And I will say that the New York State Archives is the only one that has a nonprofit that has been set up to do the work that the Archives Partnership Trust does. The only other one like it is the National Archives, has a trust that supports its work. Although I would say there are some archives throughout the country that are pretty much on par with what's available. Although a lot of researchers who have come to the state archives, the New York State Archives, have said that they haven't found that level of service at any even at the National Archives. They haven't really the level of service that's available at the New York State Archives is pretty tremendous compared to what you might find. Although I think I've heard the Pennsylvania State Archives is pretty great. And I know Minnesota is pretty good. There's a few of them that are like a standout, I guess, but most of them do have some basic online presence that you can at least begin your searches, I believe.
Great, thanks. We have another question on the website itself. Just curious, what platform do you use for the digital exhibits? Omeka?
Good question. And that has changed over time. So I don't want to answer it and be incorrect. But I don't believe the one you just mentioned is the one. Um, so I actually don't want to say the wrong thing. So I'm not
Okay.
sure, but I can get that information for you. So if you want, I can find out. So you want to know specifically the digital collections, what platform that operates off of? Yes.
The question was on the digital collection
Okay.
specifically.
All right. Yeah. And I know there's a
Great.
lot of work being done around that currently too. So I want to make sure I say the right thing. So I'll find out and then I'll send you the information, Jen, and then you can maybe send it out. Does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Um, Please feel free to keep submitting questions. We have one other one. This one is more general. Any tips you have for collaborating with educators in my community to incorporate our archives into lessons?
Yes, I've got several. Um, One of the biggest things I have found out doing this work, and so I've been in this position for 6 years, and before that, I was a consultant for 9 years for the state archives as I was teaching. Um, and from both the perspective of a researcher and from the perspective of an educator, I can tell you that the number one thing is historical background. So when you prepare some documents from your archive, say you have a great collection of Civil War letters or something that you really want to get into the hands of teachers. Yes, the teachers teach the Civil War, but understanding how those letters help them teach the Civil War is where we find there's the gap. So they're like, well, I have to teach all the battles. So one of the things I do, especially with like the Civil War, for an example, we had a collection of letters from the New York State Library. It was 210 letters from one family in Putnam County, and they were fantastic. So it was mostly the two sons and the father who served. They were sending letters home to the mother. Only two letters from the mother to the father while he was in hospital for dysentery survived. So most of them are from the battlefield perspective, which I think a lot of civil wars, that's a lot of Civil War letters or war letters in general are that's the case, right? Because the ones going out don't necessarily always survive, but the ones coming back home usually do. Um, and so one of the sons died in battle at the Battle of Wilderness. One of them came home and died a week later of typhoid fever. He was sent home because he was that sick. And then the father had a disability the rest of his life based on the census records and things of having he had dysentery that he dealt with for the rest of his life. The father lied about his age and said he was older, younger than he was because he thought he was too old to serve. And then the youngest son lied and said he was older. So I guess the long story short is this one family is a snapshot basically of all of those big concepts that are in the textbook about the Civil War, right? So two-thirds of the soldiers died of disease. They didn't die on the battlefield, right? Here we have one soldier here, one of the father came home with dysentery and the other son died of typhoid fever. So there's two illnesses, right? And then one died on the battlefield. So they're like a microcosm of the larger picture. The one son served at Gettysburg, so he was on the battle. He wrote home from the battlefield at Gettysburg. So, but you have to kind of take those documents and show the teacher where it fits in the curriculum. So, another example is we've got some cases from the Commissioner of Education files of appeals to the Commissioner of Education for desegregation of schools in New York State. So in the 30s and the 40s, this is before Brown versus the Board of Ed, New York State had passed a law saying you couldn't determine where kids went to school based on race, right? So there had to be there was supposed to be no segregation in New York State schools. However, the school boards would gerrymander lines on the maps to make sure that while there might be one or two um, African American students that would go to school with the white students, none of the white students would go to school in what they had deemed to be the African American school. And in many cases, well, at least some of the cases we've seen, the the facilities were stark differences between what the white students had access to and what these African American schools look like. So teachers will say, well, I have to teach Brown versus the Board of Ed. That's what's in the curriculum. But when you look at these cases, these were the cases that were being tried leading up to Brown. So they very much are teaching Brown when they teach these cases, but teachers often need to be kind of shown how it fits into the curriculum. Just giving them a packet of documents on the Civil War and saying, here are some great local documents on the Civil War, they don't have the time and most of them don't have the background knowledge because they've been trained to be teachers, right? So while they have an interest in history and while that's their subject that they teach and they know a lot about the things they need to teach, they don't necessarily know the larger picture. So or even the local story, which is much more engaging for students. So when you pitch it to teachers of, here's some great documents, the engagement piece is a huge selling point for local historical records. Students love it when I've done this in the classroom. They love it when they see a street name they recognize. They love it when they see family names that they recognize in letters and documents. Um, they just like to know that history was part of their community was part of history too. It wasn't like something that just happened in Washington, D.C. or over in France. Like, I always like to say history is made up of the experiences of people, and these people all come from local communities. So when students can see that in their lessons and in the records that they're using, the level of engagement goes up significantly. Um, Having said that, the teacher, to feel comfortable using those documents, really needs to feel like they understand how it fits into the history that they're teaching. So I would say to local repositories, when you're putting together resources for teachers, even if you just have a page, like 3 paragraphs on the historical context that goes with those documents, it goes a long way for the teacher in helping them fit it into the curriculum so that it's not additional. It becomes part, they just replace, maybe they've got a worksheet they always use for the Civil War. Now instead, or maybe they have a letter from somewhere else. Now instead, they can use a local letter that they can use to teach and raise that level of engagement and interest with their students using something from the local community. I know that was kind of a little all over the place, but that's kind of in my thinking. You kind of need all of those pieces when you present teachers with some local historical records that would be great for the classroom.
Great. Thank you. Um, Another question is, I noticed a Woodstock collection while you were scrolling through earlier. Do you happen to know if there is any collection on either site from Woodstock 99?
So what we typically have is the things around the celebration. So this one was from because the health commissioner office actually wanted something to be safe because as you know from the actual Woodstock, there was a lot of tragedy and not just illness but death involved with some of because it wasn't well controlled. So this one is interesting because this is operate a state fair, a safe fair, and it's around the Woodstock celebration. So in that 99, if the state did put on something, which I think they did, I'm trying to remember, if the state had planned something, the records would have been kept in the New York State Archives. So I don't know specifically, so I don't have an exact answer. But that would be a great question for the ArcRef at nysed.gov. You could send in, I'm looking for records related to the 1999 celebration, the anniversary of Woodstock. Do you have anything? And then they'll come back and they'll give you a list of collections and probably links to finding aids if we have anything that are related to that time period and that event. So
Thanks. One more came in through the chat. Um, when you mentioned available to local governments, does that mean certified local governments? Our village, Sag Harbor, is a certified local government.
yeah, so local governments, I mean, I don't know like the specifics of the laws, but if you are a local government, then you are eligible. We have local government records management improvement fund grants. Oh, I think I got that right. Um, so those are available to local governments in New York State for a variety of different services. So actually, we have information. Let me go to the website here. Grants. So this LGRMIF, so this is specifically for local governments, and there actually is an education uses grant involved in this. So if you wanted to partner with a school district, if you're a local government, and create something using your records, um, this is something you could apply for. But here's all the details that go with that. There's a frequently asked questions page here. Um, so I'm assuming if you're a local government and if this tells you what it is, how it's defined, Any county, city, town, village, school district, board of cooperative educational services, district corporation, public benefit corporation, public. So here's all the things that qualify. Again, and we have a great staff that manages this grant program. So any questions, wherever they tell you to submit your questions, they are a fantastic group of colleagues that will be able to help you with any and all questions you have about that. But that's where you find that information. I should
Great,
also
thanks.
mention if you're not a local government, the documentary heritage program, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, that's also someone in our office helps to manage that as well. So that's available if you're not a local government and you're private repository looking for guidance or funds. They can also help you. So just wanted to mention, I didn't want to leave anybody out.
That is all of the questions we have at this point in time.
Okay. Um, I guess and just kind of in conclusion, I guess I would say, and I'll put I can put my slide back up there. If you have any questions or want any help with the education side of things, or if there's any of the things I showed you today that you want more information about, you can certainly shoot me an email. And if I can't help you, I can find the person that can help you. I can forward your information on to that department or that office. Um, I would just say that there's a lot here, and I knew I only had an hour, so I didn't want to go into dive too deep into any one thing. But this New York State Archives, I mean, just has, I mean, I've been there so many years now, and I'm still always amazed at the level of the collections and just the things I just would never think a state archives would have that they have there. So definitely if you're a genealogist or if you're doing research, any sort of New York State or local community research, they have tremendous collections that, you know, and if they're not digitized, the staff again is incredible in helping you. So I highly encourage you that. I also wanted to give you a plug. We do an online speaker series every month from September to June. And I don't know how many genealogists we have on here, but in April, and you can find out more on um, the trust website. Let me just um, more on the trust website. And this is going to open up the thing I didn't want to open. Hold on a second. Let's go here. Um, in April, we're having a special genealogy workshop speaker series where you can write in with your questions ahead of time, and we will address the questions. So let's see here. Here's the calendar. And yes, so April 20, oh, I'm sorry, it's May 21st. There's a genealogy workshop. You can submit your questions to aptrust@nicid.gov. And Jane Wilcox, along with Pamela Vittorio and John Diefendorfer from the archives. Will be answering your questions about genealogy research. So I wanted to kind of give a plug for that one in particular, but I also have to say that all the ones that we do are tremendous. And then when they're done, we have the recordings are available online. And they're all completely free. So you register, you get a Zoom link. There's no charge for them, but they're a great way to kind of get into some of the different topics in New York State history. Always great speakers that we host with some great information. So I just wanted to mention that, especially if there's genealogists on for that May 21st uh, speaker series. So. But again, there's so much here, and we are here available to help. So please reach out, and hopefully you learned at least a couple little pieces of new information, something you didn't know before, that you can take with you in your research when you leave today.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And you're actually going to be in Buffalo in April doing another in-person workshop
Yes.
on historical markers.
Yes,
And
connected to the seal of civic readiness. So how teachers and students can get involved in either submitting applications for new historical markers or helping to take care of existing historical markers, and just the significance and importance of those markers in our communities and the impact of what those markers say and the accuracy of the information. So yes, it'll be a good workshop, specifically for teachers, but we are uh, you know, open if you feel like it's a workshop that would be of use to you. Winnie Lark is hosting the registration, so information will be coming out about that. So yeah, April 17th. I tried to make it late enough so that you're not going to have any snowstorms for me, right?
Fingers crossed. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. If you get a chance, please complete the evaluation form that I put in the chat. I will post it one more time right now. All right. Thank you so much. And I will send most of what we've discussed today in a follow-up email as soon as the recording is available. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.